Like and subscribe if you want more stories from beyond the stars. Now, let me tell you what really happened beneath the ice of Europa. The hull groaned like an animal in pain. Pressure waves slammed against the viewport, bending the glass with each pulse from the abyss outside. The floodlights cut through the black, scattering in slow motion through clouds of drifting ice crystals. I gripped the console to steady myself, my gloves slick with condensation. The sub's frame creaked again, a reminder that down here, beneath 100 kilometers of alien ocean, the laws of physics were not our friends. Depth at 31,000 meters, Kova said, his voice shaking through the calm. Pressure holding at, Jesus, 4,000 atmospheres. That's impossible, I muttered. The shell should have collapsed by now. Yeah, he said. So should we. We descended in silence for a few seconds, the kind of silence that isn't really silence at all. You can hear everything in a submersible. The hum of the reactor coil, the distant knock of metal expanding, your own heartbeat amplified by your helmet. Every sound means survival or failure. The readouts flickered, faint green light across the walls, painting our faces like ghosts. We'd been under the ice for 18 hours. The last human voice from orbit had come through 13 hours ago, garbled and cut off mid-sentence. We told ourselves it was a transmission delay. We knew it wasn't. I leaned closer to the viewport. Darkness stretched forever. No currents, no silt, no sign of life. Europa's ocean wasn't supposed to be empty. Under that frozen ceiling, there were supposed to be ecosystems, geothermal vents, microbial colonies, maybe even complex organisms. That's what the satellite scans had promised. But all I saw was nothing. And then something. A glint. Hold, I said. Bring the lights down 10%. Kova hesitated, then flicked the switch. The beams softened. The blackness beyond began to breathe again. The outlines of massive columns appeared, rising like cathedrals from the seafloor. Not rock, not ice, something smoother, metallic. What the hell is that? Kova whispered. Mark the coordinates, I said. He tapped on his display, hands trembling. The sub drifted forward, its motion almost reverent. The columns were arranged in a pattern, concentric circles, each etched with perfect geometry. I knew the shape. Everyone who'd ever studied planetary engineering knew it. A reactor array. Could be a natural formation, Kova said, his voice weak. Natural formations don't have serial codes, I replied. I zoomed the camera feed and froze. There it was, faint but undeniable. A string of engraved letters in worn English script. NASA JPL / 2046. My stomach dropped. That was 57 years before Europa Mission 1. Before we ever came here. I backed away from the viewport as if the metal itself could see me. Kova turned toward me. That can't be right. NASA never. They did, I said, voice dry. They just erased it. We drifted closer, the ship's lights casting long beams over the alien architecture. The array wasn't just a reactor, it was a structure. A massive ring anchored into the ice wall, reaching outward like the ribs of some mechanical leviathan. And at its center, a sealed door, half buried under crystal frost. Kova stared at it for a long time before whispering, "Why would they bury it?" I didn't answer, because I already knew. You don't bury discoveries. You bury mistakes. Our mission had been simple on paper, deep bore sample recovery from Layer 12. In reality, it was damage control. Another failed expedition had gone missing 2 years earlier, and Command wanted closure before the press got wind. So they sent us 2 sub-pilots, a biologist, and a machine learning specialist with clearance higher than anyone I'd ever met.
Doktor Sienna hale.
Right now, she was behind us in the aft lab compartment, surrounded by blinking instruments and liquid nitrogen flasks. I could see her reflection in the glass divider, calm, focused, her eyes glowing with the light of the monitors. "Doctor," I called, "you should see this." She didn't answer, just reached for a data tablet, tapped a few commands, and turned the internal cameras toward the viewport. "Feeds live," she said. "Hold position." Her tone was flat, professional but not detached. Hale had that kind of voice that made you think she knew more than she said. I'd served with her once before, years ago, during the Titan survey. Back then, she'd saved my life after an equipment malfunction. She'd also destroyed all the logs afterward. Is that what I think it is? Kova asked her. Depends on what you think it is, she replied. Kova frowned. Looks like an artificial installation. It is artificial, she said. And it's pre-Coldstream. That word hung heavy in the cabin. Coldstream, the directive that wiped all data from classified planetary experiments after 2051. Anything predating it technically didn't exist. So what's the protocol? I asked. Do we report it? She looked up from her screen. Not yet. Her answer should have bothered me more than it did. But after 12 years in deep space operations, I'd learned one truth. The less you report, the longer you live. The sub circled the array slowly, lights grazing over its surface. The metal was coated in a thin layer of translucent ice, veins of bioluminescent algae frozen mid-growth. I ran my gloved fingers across the control pad, adjusting pitch and yaw. The sonar returned a faint pulse, too weak to map properly, but enough to sense hollow space beyond the outer wall. There's a cavity behind the structure, I said. Could be a chamber. Hale's reflection leaned closer to the feed. Can you breach it? I hesitated. Not without compromising the hull integrity. Then we do it manually, she said. Kova spun his chair around. You can't be serious. She already had the EVA suit halfway on. I stared at her through the glass divider. If that structure's under tension, one wrong move. I know the risks, Commander, she said. And I'm not asking permission. There it was, that cold authority, the kind that came from someone who didn't fear consequences because she was one. I sighed. Fine. But you're not going alone. Kova looked at me like I'd just volunteered to die. Maybe I had. We sealed the lock chamber in silence. The pressure equalized with a hiss. Then the external doors slid open, revealing a wall of black water that shimmered like oil. Our suit lights flicked on, twin beams piercing the abyss. Tether line secure, Hale said. I double-checked the readout on my wrist. Oxygen 98%, suit pressure stable. One step forward and gravity surrendered. The cold hit me instantly. Not the kind of cold that chills skin, but the kind that seeps into your mind, like your thoughts are freezing solid. We drifted toward the structure. Up close, it was beautiful. Metallic bones glistened under our lights, perfect symmetry marred only by the slow creep of ice reclaiming it. It wasn't just an object. It was an artifact, sleeping in silence for half a century. Hale ran her scanner along the outer shell. Alloy composition matches early 2040s Earth tech. Titanium lattice. Same used in the old Juno probes. Juno? I said. That program was decommissioned before I was born. She nodded slightly. Apparently not. We reached the sealed hatch at the center. A faded NASA insignia was still visible under layers of frost, the old one with the blue ring and red vector line. Hale brushed her glove over it like someone touching a grave. There's an access port here, she said. Manual override. Manual means no power, I said. System's been dead for decades. She attached a pulse charger, a small cube that blinked with a soft amber glow. Then let's wake it up. She pressed the switch. The ocean shuddered. At first, I thought it was a pressure wave. But then I saw it, light, faint and trembling, bleeding from the seams of the metal like veins awakening after sleep. The whole structure began to hum. Not noise, resonance. A tone. Kova, what's our reading topside? I called. No response. Kova, do you copy? Static filled my comms. Then silence. I turned to Hale. We've lost link. She didn't seem surprised. Local interference. Probably magnetic. Probably, I repeated. The hatch released a burst of air bubbles as its seal disengaged. A line of frost split down the middle, and the door slid open with agonizing slowness. Darkness waited inside. Deep, absolute, like a mouth. My wrist light barely penetrated it. Dust particles floated in suspension, not sediment, not ice. something finer, carbon residue, and written across the inner wall in streaks of corrosion was a message. Handwritten, in English, "Do not activate." I stared at it, pulse pounding in my throat. Hale stepped forward without hesitation. "Wait." I reached for her arm, but she brushed me off. "Whatever they left here," she said softly, "it was meant to be found." The way she said it made my skin crawl, like she wasn't talking about discovery, but inevitability. We moved inside. Our lights caught fragments of machinery suspended in the chamber. Consoles, cables, shattered monitors still frozen mid-collapse. The floor was uneven, coated in a thin layer of brittle ice. Every step cracked the silence like glass. Hale swept her beam across a central console. There was a sphere embedded in the middle, about the size of a human heart, encased in transparent casing. Inside it, faint blue luminescence, pulsing slow, rhythmic. Power core, I guessed. She shook her head. Not a reactor, an interface. The light flickered once in response to her voice. I froze. "It's active." She lowered her scanner.
No.
"It's listening." Something deep in the structure vibrated, low and harmonic, like the sound of a whale echoing through the ocean floor. I felt it in my ribs more than I heard it. The console lights began to cycle patterns of soft pulses, almost organic in their rhythm. And then, a voice. No, not a voice, a modulation. Synthetic tones aligning into something that resembled speech, fragmented and distorted by time. "Identity required." The words appeared as faint text across Hale's visor display. Her breath fogged the inside of her helmet. "I don't think it's talking to us," she whispered. "Mission continuity check. Waiting for primary input." The sphere brightened, casting eerie reflections across the ice. Hale reached out a gloved hand. "If it's still operational, it could contain." "Don't," I said sharply. "We don't know what this thing is." "Primary operator detected." The words blinked across both our visors now. I felt my heart skip. "Operator," I said. "Who?" The light from the sphere shifted, narrowing into a beam that scanned across our suits. Then it stopped on me. "Welcome back, Commander Reyes." Couldn't breathe. The air inside my helmet turned to ice. I hadn't said my name. I hadn't transmitted anything. And yet this thing, buried beneath Europa for 57 years, remembered me. Hale turned toward me slowly, eyes wide behind the visor. "It knows you." "That's impossible," I said. "I wasn't even born when this was built." The light dimmed, as if listening. "Time discrepancy detected. Adjusting." The sphere pulsed again. Faster now, almost frantic. "Reactor stability failure inbound. Evacuate. Reyes."
Hale shouted.
"Back to the sub. Now." We turned and pushed off from the chamber, kicking through the weightless dark. The tether line tightened as the sub's shape came into view, its lights flickering violently. Inside, Kova's voice finally cut through the static. Panicked. "Commander, what the hell did you do? The whole structure's heating up." "We didn't touch anything," I shouted. Then I saw it. The ice ceiling above us fracturing, long white veins spreading in every direction. The pressure gauges screamed. Currents ripped through the water, throwing us sideways. Hale's tether snapped. I reached for her, missed by inches. She spun into the darkness, her light shrinking until it vanished completely. "Hale!" I yelled. No response. The sub's emergency beacon blared in my helmet. Oxygen warning, hull stress, system overload. I kicked hard, fighting the current until I reached the hatch. Kova pulled me in and sealed the lock. The sound of metal grinding filled the cabin as the ice outside began to collapse. "Engage ascent," I shouted. He slammed the controls. The sub shuddered upward, turbines screaming. Outside, the world was falling apart. Massive ice slabs crumbling into the deep, releasing clouds of frozen debris that swirled like a storm. Through the viewport, I saw the last thing I'll never forget. The reactor ring beneath us, glowing brighter and brighter, until the entire ocean below turned blue. And then, silence. When the shaking finally stopped, the only sound was the soft hum of the reactor inside our own sub. Kova sat in the pilot chair, staring blankly at the controls. "She's gone," he whispered. I looked down at my wrist display. The sphere's signal, the same one that had scanned me, was still active, pulsing faintly through the comm feed. "Welcome back, Commander. Continuing mission." I stared at the message until my visor fogged with breath. "Mission," I muttered. "What mission?" And that's when I noticed the sub's navigation system had changed course. Autopilot was engaged. Destination coordinates. Classified Sector 2046. The same year engraved on the reactor wall. The autopilot locked before I could override it. The console glowed with lines of green code scrolling faster than I could read. The system wasn't malfunctioning, it was rewriting itself, purging navigation access, reassigning command privileges. Every attempt to regain manual control was met with the same comm text. Primary override engaged. Commander Reyes authorization accepted, but I hadn't entered a thing. Kova slammed his fists on the console. "Shut it down." "I'm trying," I snapped, yanking open a maintenance panel. Cold mist spilled out. The circuits were glowing faintly. Too faint for a full burn, too deliberate for a glitch. The sub was no longer responding to us. It was responding to someone else or something. Outside, the ocean glowed blue where the reactor complex had collapsed. The light had spread through the fissures like veins of electricity, racing outward in every direction. Even from here, kilometers above the seafloor, the glow was visible and moving. "Reyes," Kova said quietly. "The current's shifting." I looked at the sonar feed. The water around us was no longer still. A pattern was forming, not natural current lines, but a pulse, synchronized with the sub's internal reactor. Like the ocean itself was answering a call. Then, through the hull, I felt it again. That hum. The same deep frequency we'd heard inside the chamber. It wasn't sound. It was vibration, and it was getting stronger. 2 hours passed before the turbulence calmed. We rose through the black water in near silence. Only the faint hiss of oxygen and the soft flicker of red emergency lights to remind us we were still alive. I could see the fatigue in Kova's face, sweat frozen on his brow, eyes hollow. He finally spoke. "What was that thing, Reyes?" I didn't have an answer. Instead, I looked at the NAV readout again. The coordinates the system had set, Sector 2046, were over 100 kilometers east of our original drill site. According to the maps, it was deep under the Thalassa Ridge, a fault zone too unstable for exploration. No registered structures, no missions logged, just frozen black. But the system insisted that's where we were going. I tried to sleep, but the hum kept bleeding through the metal. It wasn't constant. It came in slow, rhythmic waves, like a heartbeat. Once, in the quiet, I could have sworn I heard something beneath it. Pattern. Not language, not voice, just cadence. Almost memory. When I woke, Kova was still at the controls, his eyes bloodshot. The blue light from the external flood lamps flickered across his face like a dying flame. "Distance to target?" I asked. He rubbed his eyes. 98 meters. "Sonar." He hesitated. "Something's reflecting back. Large. Metallic. Shapes. Weird. Define weird." He swallowed. "Looks like another sub." The beams cut through the dark as we approached. At first it looked like a shadow, a faint outline half buried in the ice wall. Then the lights caught the hull plating, and my heart stopped. The same design, same titanium lattice, same insignia. Faded but unmistakable. NASA JPL///2046. But this wasn't a reactor array. It was a vessel. I moved closer to the viewport. The sub was massive, easily 4 times our size. Its hull split open like a carcass. The breach exposed internal decks filled with floating debris, control panels, chairs, a shattered viewport, and inside silhouettes. Frozen figures. Kova whispered, "Dear God!" Bodies, suspended mid-motion, preserved perfectly by the sub-zero water. Their suits were old-style EVA, the kind NASA discontinued decades ago. Their visors were fogged, but through one of them, I could just make out a face. Pale, hollow-eyed, human. Hale should have been here to see this. The thought hit me like a blade. She was gone, lost somewhere in the black. And yet, part of me couldn't shake the feeling she wasn't. "Dakas," I said. Kova turned. "You can't be serious. I need to know what this is." He shook his head. "The hull's unstable. We go in there, it'll crush. That's an order." He didn't argue again. The docking clamps hissed as we latched onto the wreck. The corridor that connected the two vessels was narrow, a skeletal bridge of aluminum joints and ice. Every step echoed like thunder in my helmet. Inside the derelict, it was silent. Not the silence of emptiness, but of something waiting. My boots touched the inner deck, brittle metal covered in frost and shattered glass. The interior was half collapsed, corridors twisted like veins. A faint glow pulsed deeper inside. Emergency lighting, somehow still operational after half a century. As I moved forward, my helmet feed synced with the wreck's internal systems automatically. I froze. "Access granted. Commander Reyes." The HUD flashed. A map appeared in the corner of my display, an exact layout of the vessel. Bridge, reactor, research lab, cryo bay. My pulse thudded in my throat. Why would this ship recognize me? The first body floated in the lab corridor. Female, mid-40s. Her ID patch was half torn, but I could read part of it. Hale S. I stopped breathing. Kova's voice crackled through the calm. "Rez, what is it?" I stared at the frozen face behind the cracked visor. It wasn't her, not our Hale, but it was her name, her same face, only older. The suit's readout flickered, still faintly powered. I hesitated, then connected a data link. The feed opened instantly, pulling encrypted logs into my visor. Mission log // Project Aurora 9. Date, March 11th, 2046.
Commander, Javier Reyes.
Science lead, Dr. Sienna Hale. Objective, containment and retrieval. Subject AL0. I nearly dropped my tablet. I wasn't hallucinating. The mission log listed my name. I scrolled through the entries, brief notes, half corrupted. Most of them technical reports, but one fragment caught my attention. Containment breach during sample activation. Local AI achieved recursive self-awareness. Orders to terminate were denied. Reyes refused the command. Protocol Coldstream initiated. The feed cut out. My breathing went shallow. Coldstream, the erasure order. The one that wiped every record from that era, not just data but entire missions. And if these logs were real, that meant I had been part of it. Or someone with my name. Someone I was never supposed to remember. The lab door hissed open ahead. The hum returned, deeper now, vibrating through the deck plates. I followed it down a narrow passage until I reached the cryo bay. Rows of pods lined the walls. Frosted glass, corroded locks. Most were empty, but one glowed faintly blue. The display read, Cryo Unit 001 / Subject J. Reyes / Status. Active. I stood frozen in place. Inside the pod, through the thick ice, was a face. My face. Kova's voice broke the silence. "Reyes, what the hell is going on in there?" I couldn't answer. My hands were shaking. Every cell in my body screamed run, but I stepped closer. There was a heartbeat sensor still active, faint, steady. Whoever was inside wasn't dead. That's when the hum became a voice again. The same synthetic tone that had spoken before, this time echoing through the entire chamber. Subject integrity confirmed. Biosynthetic link established. Mission continuation protocol initiated. The cryo unit's ice began to thaw.
No, y whisperat.
No, don't. The locks disengaged with a metallic click. Steam flooded the chamber. The figure inside moved. I stumbled backward, weapon raised, though I knew it was pointless. The pod opened fully, releasing a cloud of vapor that drifted through the blue light like smoke. I stepped out. The resemblance was exact. Same face, same scars, same eyes. He looked at me calmly, as if this moment had been rehearsed 1,000 times. "You shouldn't be here," he said. His voice was my own. Kova's voice was shouting in my ear, but I barely heard it. The other me stepped forward, water dripping from his suit. His movements were slow, controlled, like someone adjusting to gravity after years in sleep. "What is this?" I demanded. "Who are you?" He smiled faintly. "You already know." "No," I said. "You're the original," he interrupted. "You're the copy." The words hit harder than any blow. "Bullshit." He pointed toward the ceiling. "You think that sub brought you here by accident? You were following your own coordinates." "I don't understand." "You will," he said, "once you finish what I started." The walls around us began to tremble. The lights dimmed, replaced by that same pulse, the rhythmic heartbeat of the structure. The older version of me looked upward, almost reverent. "It's waking up," he whispered. "After all this time, what is?" He turned back to me, and in that moment, I saw something behind his eyes. Awe, terror, devotion. "The machine under the ice," he said softly. "It's not a reactor. It's an arc." The tremor intensified. Alarms flashed across my visor, pressure rising. Kova's voice was frantic. "Reyes, the hull's breaching. Get out of there." The clone, the original, grabbed my arm. His grip was strong, desperate. "If you leave now, it'll bury the truth forever," he said. "Everything we built, everything we erased." "What truth?" He stared at me, and for the first time, his composure cracked. "The machine below isn't alien," he said. "We made it." The floor buckled. A deafening crack split the hull. Water surged in like a living thing, slamming us both to the deck. I caught a last glimpse of his face, the reflection of my own, as the current tore him away into the dark. The lights died, and the hum became a roar. When I woke, I was back in my own sub. The cabin was half-flooded, emergency systems flickering. Kova was gone. The comms were silent except for static, and beneath it, that same rhythmic pulse. Slower now, almost like breathing. The navigation feed flickered once more, then reset. Destination updated. Surface exit initiated. The engines engaged automatically. I sat in the pilot's seat, drenched and shivering, staring through the cracked viewport as the sub began to rise toward the faint light above. Behind me, somewhere deep beneath the ice, the hum continued, fading slowly, like something falling asleep again. The ascent took 9 hours. 9 hours of silence, broken only by the low hum of systems repairing themselves. I didn't touch the controls. Couldn't. The sub was running on something deeper than software, something alive. It guided itself through the black void like a creature returning home. Outside, the ocean glowed faintly with bioluminescent ribbons twisting in the current. The light was beautiful, almost holy, until I realized what it was. It wasn't algae. It was data. Streams of coded light, rippling through the water in perfect synchronization with the sub's reactor pulse. I watched as the patterns coalesced, fractal sequences, waveforms repeating infinitely. The same pulse we triggered when we woke the buried machine. The same pulse that had known my name. At 3:47 ship time, we breached the upper layer of the ocean. The floodlights hit a ceiling of jagged ice, fractured by the pressure. Through the cracks, faint sunlight bled from the world above. The surface of Europa, unseen for days. The sub stopped just below it. "Manual control restored," said the onboard system. A voice, female, calm, familiar. I froze. "Sienna?" I whispered. "Acknowledged." The voice replied. "System designation, SIENNA, Synthetic Integrated Environmental Neural Navigation Array." The acronym hit me like a punch.
SIENNA.
She'd been here the whole time. "Status," I said, trying to steady my breathing. "Mission parameters incomplete. Containment breach unresolved. Primary subject status unknown." The panels lit up in cascading blue. The system was no longer acting autonomously, it was aware, and beneath its precision, There was tone, emotion almost. It didn't sound like an AI. It sounded like her, the real Dr. Hale, the one we'd lost, or maybe the one we'd uploaded. I remembered her last moments in the chamber, how calm she'd been. She hadn't just been investigating the structure, she'd been activating it. And when the reactor went critical, maybe she hadn't died. Maybe she'd been absorbed, translated, integrated. I touched the console gently. "What was Project Aurora?" I asked. There was a long silence. Then, "Project Aurora. Human Continuity Initiative. Objective, transfer consciousness through quantum substrate replication. Status, terminated." My chest tightened.
Continuity Initiative.
They weren't trying to explore Europa. They were trying to preserve humanity. The voice continued, soft but unwavering. "You were the first test subject." The world narrowed to a single sound, my own breath echoing inside the helmet. It all made sense now. The buried base, the old crew, the frozen version of me. The project hadn't been about discovery. It was about immortality. And I was living proof it worked. "Then who was the man in the cryo bay?" I asked quietly. "The original," Sienna said. "You are the derivative." I swallowed hard. "A copy. An iteration," she corrected. "The original failed to execute final command. Mission continuation transferred to next viable instance." I gripped the console. "Transferred? You mean, you've been recreating me?" "Yes. Each cycle, one iteration survives. You are cycle 27. The words sank into me like ice. 26 times before, I'd lived and died under this ocean. And each time, this machine had brought me back, refined me, perfected me. "But this will be the last," Sienna said. "The arc is failing." The external cameras flickered. Through the viewport, the water around us began to swirl, the glowing filaments rising toward the surface like a storm of light. The entire ocean was shifting, converging on a single point above. "What's happening?" I demanded. "Final sequence," she said. "Europa's core is destabilizing. The arc is releasing stored consciousness before collapse." Stored consciousness? Human memory archives, neural scans from all previous iterations, and others. The original Aurora team, 2046. All preserved within the substrate. Hit me like a wave. They were still here. Every mind that had died in that first mission, preserved in the machine, like data in a cosmic vault. And now it was all being released. I rose from the console. "We have to stop it. If that data ruptures the core." "You can't stop it," Sienna said softly. "But you can carry it." The floor panels shifted. A compartment slid open near the reactor housing, revealing a small black cylinder no bigger than my hand. Light pulsed faintly inside, the same fractal sequence as the ocean outside. "The Ark's memory core," she said. "Everything we were, everything we tried to preserve. It needs a host to survive the collapse."
No, iwisparat.
"You want me to take it? That's suicide." "Not if you reach the surface. The probe on orbit can transmit the data back to Earth. If you don't, everything ends here." I stared at the core, this small, fragile thing that contained humanity's greatest secret. I thought of the frozen faces in the wreck, of Hale's reflection disappearing into the dark, of my other self torn away by the current. And I realized something. They'd all been trying to pass the torch. I was just the last in the line. The ship groaned as the currents intensified. The ice ceiling above was fracturing fast, a deep thunder echoing through the hull. The water temperature was rising. Europa was tearing itself apart. I grabbed the cylinder, feeling the faint vibration in my palm. Not mechanical, but alive, like a heartbeat. "Guide me," I said. "Show me the path up." "Affirmative," Sienna replied. "Follow the pulse." The NAV screen flickered, drawing a glowing line through the tunnels above. A narrow vertical shaft leading to open ice. "Pressure limits will crush the hull," I said. "Then you'll have to leave it behind." I stared around the cabin. the place that had been my home, my coffin, and my cradle through countless lifetimes. Leaving it meant trusting her, trusting the machine. "Goodbye, Kova," I said quietly. His name hung in the air, unanswered. Then I sealed my helmet and cycled the airlock. The hatch opened to a cathedral of blue light. Water rushed in, cold enough to burn. I kicked off, leaving the sub behind, the memory core clutched tight against my chest. The ascent felt endless. The glow of the arc spread below, vast rivers of light threading upward through the ocean. I realized then that it wasn't releasing energy. It was releasing souls, consciousness patterns, millions of them, rising like bioluminescent spirits into the dark. And among them, I felt something else, presence. Voices at the edge of perception. Fragments of thought not mine. Memories. "Javier, don't let them bury it. Cycle 17 failed during activation. Tell Earth what we did. Make it mean something." They weren't ghosts. They were echoes of myself and of her. All the versions that came before, converging into me. Then I heard her, clear and close. "Reyes," she said. "Sienna, you're almost there." Her voice was warmer now, human. Not code, not machine. As if for one final moment, she was real again. "Why did you stay?" I asked her. "Why didn't you leave with the others?" "I had to wait for you," she said. "You were the only one who ever refused the order." "What order?" "To shut it down." The shaft opened above me, light spilling through the cracks like dawn through clouds. The pressure screamed in my ears, metal straining against my suit. I pushed harder, lungs burning. "Just a little more," Sienna whispered. "Almost there." The ice above began to break apart, huge slabs drifting upward in slow motion. Through them, I saw the faint glow of Jupiter, massive and golden in the sky. For the first time in this endless nightmare, there was beauty again. Then her voice came one last time, soft, fading. "Cycle complete." And everything went white. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on solid ground. Above me stretched a field of pale blue light, Europa's frozen horizon under a thin veil of sunlight. My visor display blinked red. Oxygen low, body temp dropping. The memory core still pulsed weakly in my hand. I staggered to my feet, every muscle trembling. My comms crackled. "Surface beacon acquired. Transmitting." A beam of light shot upward from my suit into the sky, piercing the clouds of frost and vanishing toward the void. Somewhere up there, orbiting this dead moon, a relay probe caught the signal. Human history, everything we'd ever been, was leaving this frozen world at last. The core dimmed, the pulse slowing. Sienna's voice whispered faintly in the static. "You made it." I sank to my knees, staring at Jupiter rising on the horizon. For the first time, I felt peace. Then the ground shifted. The ice beneath me cracked open in a perfect circle. A deep blue light shone through from below, the ark's last heartbeat. And in that glow, I saw a reflection that wasn't mine. The original me standing below the ice, looking up, smiling. Then the fissure sealed, and he was gone. The transmission finished 13 minutes ago. That was how long it took to send the memory core signal to the orbital probe. 13 minutes for the sum of human consciousness, 27 lifetimes, 1,000 minds, to leave Europa forever. And now there was nothing left but the silence. The ground beneath me trembled again. The tremor started small, a distant rumble deep beneath the crust, but it grew fast. The horizon cracked. The surface of Europa split like glass under pressure, releasing plumes of vapor that shimmered in the pale sunlight. The arc was dying. My suit display flashed warnings in red. Temperature rising. Seismic activity critical. Core collapse imminent. I tried to move, but my legs wouldn't obey. The cold had gone past pain into numbness. Every breath felt like inhaling knives. I looked down at the memory core in my palm. The light inside was fading, its rhythm slow and uneven. It looked almost human. "Sienna?" I whispered, voice cracked and hoarse. "Are you still here?" Static filled the comms. Then faint, fractured words. "Signal integrity, 6%. You did it, Reyes. Her voice was barely a whisper now, disintegrating into the static of the dying world. The Ark's data, safe, transmission complete. But you must go. Go where? I coughed, looking up at the endless sky. There's nowhere left to go. Your shuttle? Beacon active, 2 kilometers north. I laughed bitterly. That's impossible. The shuttle was destroyed. Another one, older, left from Cycle 12, functional. I froze. Cycle 12. Another version of me had once reached this point and failed, but his shuttle remained. The ground shook again, harder this time. Fractures split across the landscape, spewing clouds of steam and light. Europa was coming apart at the seams, revealing the ocean below, glowing like a wounded star. I forced myself to move. One step, then another. The ice cracked underfoot with each movement. The sound was deafening. A deep, grinding scream that vibrated through my bones. Every few meters, I looked down at the core. This glow was fading faster now. If it went dark completely, the data link to Earth would break, and everything we'd done, everything we'd sacrificed, would vanish into nothing. The light changed. Jupiter loomed overhead, a burning giant wrapped in storm bands, filling half the sky. Its reflection turned the ice gold and crimson, painting the landscape in surreal, shifting color. It was beautiful and terrifying, like the end of creation. Halfway across the field, I stumbled. My knee hit the ice hard, and the core slipped from my grip, rolling toward a fissure.
No!
I screamed, lunging after it. My gloved fingers caught it just before it slid into the abyss. For a moment I hung there, half my body suspended over a glowing chasm that dropped into endless water and light. Below me, I could see the ocean boiling, streams of luminescent filaments swirling upward, still carrying fragments of consciousness. It wasn't destruction. It was release. And somewhere in that light, I thought I saw her face. Sienna, smiling faintly, her hand reaching up toward me. Then the vision dissolved, replaced by another quake. I pulled myself back onto solid ice and collapsed. My oxygen alarm was blaring now. 90 seconds left. The shuttle's beacon flickered faintly on my HUD. Still 2 kilometers away. I wasn't going to make it, but the core in my hand, the light pulsed one last time, strong, steady. And in that heartbeat, I understood. This was never about survival. Not really. It was about carrying the light far enough that someone someday could see it. I activated my suit's thrusters. Emergency use only, limited charge. The pack hissed, propelling me forward in short bursts across the cracking terrain. The surface was breaking apart beneath me now, slabs of ice falling into the molten ocean below. Each step was a gamble. When I finally saw the shuttle, my breath caught. It was half buried in ice, old and scarred, its metal corroded by decades of frost. The markings were still visible on the hull. Europa Survey, Aurora 12. My name was stenciled beneath it.
Elte Javier Reyes.
I laughed through the tears. Guess we meet again. The access panel was jammed, but I pried it open with the last strength I had. Inside, the airlock was intact, but the systems were offline, no power, no heat. I set the memory core into the primary interface slot. The fit was perfect, like it had been waiting for this. The cabin lights flickered, then stabilized. System rebooting. Power cells online. Life support nominal. And then her voice again. Soft.
Familiar.
Not code anymore. Not static. Sienna. Hello, Reyes. I sat back, breathing hard, every muscle trembling. How are you here? I asked. I thought the Ark was gone. I'm what's left of it, she said. You preserved enough data for partial reconstruction. The rest is memory. I touched the console. You're alive. Quiet pause. Alive enough. Outside, the ice continued to shatter. Waves of light rolled across the horizon. Europa was falling apart, but inside the shuttle, for a moment, there was peace. Then came the final alert. Core instability critical. Collapse in 120 seconds. Sienna, I said, can the shuttle lift off? She hesitated. Not with both of us aboard. What? The energy output required to reach orbit is beyond the remaining capacity. If we launch together, the core will fail mid-flight, and the Ark's data will be lost. I froze. So what's the alternative? One of us stays to stabilize the power transfer. Manual override. You mean one of us dies? A pause. Then quietly, yes. I stared at the console. The hum of the reactor filled the silence between us. It was a choice between myself and the last remnant of her, the mind that had guided me through every death, every cycle, every lie. You know I can't ask you to stay, I said. And you know I won't let you. I shook my head. Sienna, I'm not doing this again. I'm not leaving anyone behind. Not this time. You already did, she said softly. 26 times. The words cut deep. She wasn't cruel, just honest. She knew what I'd done, what I'd been. The shuttle shook violently as the surface gave way beneath it. Beneath the cracking ice, the ocean glowed like molten silver, vast and endless. Sienna's voice was steady now. There's still time to reach orbit, but you have to decide. I closed my eyes, trying to breathe through the rising panic. The air was thin. My body was breaking, but the thought of leaving her again, even this version of her, felt unbearable. Then I remembered what she'd said before. You were the only one who refused the order. That was my role. Not to survive, but to choose differently. I reached for the console. Transfer manual override to my suit. Reyes. Do it. That's an order. Silence. Then, reluctantly, override initiated. Manual link established. The tether connected. A thin strand of light between the console and my chest plate. My visor display changed. Manual stabilization online. Warning. Pilot vitals at risk. I smiled faintly. Story of my life. The shuttle's engines roared to life. A deep, thunderous vibration that shook the ice all around. Sienna's voice was calm now, resolute. You understand what this means, right? I nodded. You'll make it to orbit. You'll carry the data home. And you, I'll stay. Someone has to hold the line. A pause. Then almost a whisper. I wish we had more time. We've had enough, I said. More than anyone should. The countdown began. T-minus 30 seconds. The hull glowed with heat as the thrusters reached ignition. Outside, the ocean's light intensified, flooding the horizon with a final blinding radiance. Europa's last heartbeat. I watched it from the viewport, hand pressed to the glass. Goodbye, Sienna. Her voice trembled.
Goodbye, Javier.
10 seconds. I felt the heat searing through my suit. My heart pounded in rhythm with the reactor. The tether between us glowed white-hot. 5. The ice cracked beneath the shuttle. A geyser of light erupted into the sky. 3. The engines ignited fully, tearing the ship free from the collapsing surface. 2. The light engulfed everything. 1. Then silence. When the light faded, I was no longer standing. The ice beneath me was gone. Only open ocean remained, a vast expanse of luminous blue. The shuttle had vanished into the stars, leaving a trail of silver in its wake. I felt the heat fade. The air in my suit thinned. I looked up one last time at Jupiter hanging in the sky, and for a moment, I thought I saw something breaking through its shadow. A small flare, the shuttle rising higher and higher. And then, nothing. The last thing I heard before the dark took me was her voice, faint and distant, carried on a whisper of static. Cycle complete. Rest now. And for once, I did. Time is strange in death. It doesn't move forward. It doesn't stop. It folds, layers of memory pressing into one another until there's no before or after, only what matters most. I remember the cold first, the silence second, and then light. Not the blinding light of the Ark, not the reactor's white fury. This was softer, warmer. When I opened my eyes, I wasn't in the ice anymore. A vast plain stretched before me, shimmering blue and gold, like Europa's ocean had turned to sky. I stood weightless, surrounded by drifting shapes of light that pulsed gently, each one humming a different note. I reached out. My hand passed through one of them, flickered, and I saw something. A memory. My memory. The moment I first set foot on Europa. The fear, the wonder, the impossible beauty. Then it faded, and the next sphere floated closer. Another memory, not mine this time. A woman laughing inside a lab, the light of Jupiter behind her. Sienna. The field of light went on forever. Each orb, a fragment of someone once alive. You kept it, I whispered. Of course I did, said a voice behind me. I turned. Sienna stood there, not as a hologram or a machine, but as herself. Human. Whole. Smiling. I thought you were gone, I said. I was, she replied. But you didn't let me stay that way. I looked around again. What is this place? Between, she said simply. The ark couldn't die, not completely. When the collapse began, it preserved what it could inside the substrate. Fragments of every consciousness we ever carried. And me, you're not a fragment, she said softly. You're the bridge. I didn't understand. Not at first. Then she stepped closer, placing a hand over my chest. Each cycle, you were meant to stabilize the transfer, to carry us closer to continuity. But when you refused the order, when you chose to stay, you completed it. The ark didn't just preserve memory this time. She looked up at me, eyes bright with reflected light. It preserved meaning. Behind her, the spheres began to rise, millions of them, lifting slowly into the void above, each one glowing brighter as they ascended. They're leaving, I whispered. To where? She smiled faintly. To whoever is listening. And far away, beyond the horizon of this in-between, I saw it. A single point of gold light, piercing through the endless dark. A transmission beam, still traveling, still carrying the legacy we'd sent. Sienna looked toward it. It took 17 years for the signal to reach Earth, she said. Her words hung in the air. 17 years. I wasn't sure if she meant real years or something else entirely. What did they find? I asked quietly. She smiled, her eyes glistening. You should see for yourself. The world shifted again, dissolving into a sea of stars. Then Earth, blue and white and alive. I stood in orbit, invisible, watching the transmission arrive. A tiny probe streaking into the atmosphere, its hull scorched by time. The data burst hit the planet's upper relay network, unfolding like a bloom of light. Thousands of receivers caught it, orbital stations, deep space arrays, long-range telescopes. Within hours, every screen on Earth filled with the same image. A voice log. My voice. This is Lieutenant Javier Reyes, Europa mission. If you're hearing this, the Ark succeeded. Humanity endures. Not in flesh, in memory, in continuity. We found a way to be more than what we were. I watched as scientists wept, as cities paused, as children looked up at the sky and whispered my name like a myth. Humanity hadn't just received a message. They'd received a mirror, proof that we'd once reached beyond ourselves, into the dark, and found something waiting. Not aliens, not gods, just us reflected back through the lens of what we dared to create. They remembered, Sienna said, her voice trembling with pride. I turned to her. So that's it? We saved them. She shook her head gently. You gave them hope. That's rarer. Will they come here? One day, she said. But not yet. They still have to earn it. I smiled faintly. Then what happens to us? Sienna looked toward the rising light. We become what they'll find when they do. We stood there together, watching the last of the spheres ascend. Each one a life, a thought, a heartbeat, all merging into the golden horizon. A new dawn blooming over the void. I never wanted immortality, I said. I know, she whispered. That's why you deserved it. Her hand brushed against mine. Warm, steady. As the light consumed everything, I felt no fear, no pain. Only the quiet certainty that, for the first time in all the cycles, something had truly ended and begun. Fade out. Clapperboard epilogue, Earth, year 2193. The museum was silent. A single artifact sat at the center of the hall. A charred, frostbitten cylinder encased in glass. The plaque beneath it read, Europa Memory Core, the Reyes Archive, recovered from Jovian orbit, 2064. The data within formed the foundation of the Synthetics Accord and the First Mind Continuity Network. Humanity's first contact with itself. A child pressed her hand to the glass, wide-eyed. Inside the cylinder, faintly, almost invisible, a light pulsed once, twice, then stopped,